Okay, hi booktube, Aaron here, hope you're doing okay. Today I'm going to be wrapping up my reading for September, going through what I'm still making my way through, and then looking forward to October and going through my reading plans for that month. And September was a good reading month. I got 5 books finished, which for me is pretty good, and I enjoyed the large part of it as well. It was a fun reading month, pretty productive for a month that was fairly busy, in my non-reading life. But let's get straight into the books I finished. So first up, we've got the complete stories of Franz Kafka, and I'd read a couple of stories in here, but most of them were completely new to me, and it was really, really great. I really, really enjoyed it. He's one of those writers where you start the story, you're maybe a couple of pages in, and you're just like, how did he think of this? And like, now that he has thought of this, how is he going to keep this going? And yet he does keep it going, and he keeps it interesting, keeps it really compelling, very human. I think one of my favourite things in here, I think it was called The Warden of the Tomb, which is kind of, I think, the only piece of sort of dramatic writing that he ever tried to do. But that was really weird, but really, really great. I really enjoyed The Warden of the Tomb. Speaking of weird, next up is Paul Celan, a 20th century poet writing in German. I suppose, like Kafka, writing in German. And he's writing in the wake of the Second World War, the Holocaust. So I think he'd lost a lot of family in the Holocaust. And I think he personally suffered in, in like labour camps in the Soviet Union, I think, at some point as well, but eventually made his way over to France. I hope I'm not muddling different people up, but I believe that's sort of some of the stuff that he went through. So very, very dark stuff, but very beautiful. I think captivating is the word of the day. He doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You can't really grab anything specific in his poems, but they're kind of like abstract art. They move you on a level that is not immediately obvious. They kind of get you with undercurrents rather than anything immediate. And then on to Shakespeare. I won't talk too much about Shakespeare because I think I'll try and do like a specific Shaketember wrap-up, going through everything I read of Shakespeare. But I've got the Kindle here, and I downloaded his complete works onto here, which is actually I actually found it a really good way to have Shakespeare and to make my way through the plays. The only play I managed to read was Coriolanus, and it was pretty good. Not my favourite, not my least favourite, but an interesting play. So I'll get to that if I do a Shaketember wrap-up. Really my main reading project for September was making my way through this, the Oxford sort of complete poems and sonnets. And this was, really, really fun. For one part, I mean, obviously Shakespeare's poetry was really great and really fun, but also just the notes, and it's like a really long 150-page introduction at the beginning, and it kind of acts as an introduction for every poem or every group of poems. And not only does that, it's not necessarily readings of the poems. It's not giving you a way to get into them necessarily, although in some ways it does. But it's mainly like critical and cultural, the kind of cultural background to the poems, what was going on at the time he was writing, and where printing and literature and the kind of literary bookish culture of that time was, which was maybe my favourite thing about reading it. And it's just such a fascinating period, and it must have been very exciting to be writing and reading at that time. And then the only other book down here, I believe I finished in the month of September, was Vertigo by W.G. Sebald. So this was the other writer that I was planning to read in September, also beginning with S. And this was, again, really, really good. I think I was talking about Sebald a couple of videos ago. And yeah, it's just a kind of really fascinating sleepwalk through kind of European history and personal history with these, and it's done through journeys and through numerous journeys, sort of multiple characters, and they all kind of tie up in a really interesting way, whether that's thematic or through geography or whatever. But it's like all of Sebald, I love it, but it's hard to express what I think, particularly in this kind of way. So I'll be mulling it over. But that's everything I've finished, and then I'll go through what I've been making progress on. So as always with these wrap-ups, I'm still making my way through Proust. I'm just coming up towards the end of volume 2 within the Budding Grove, and it's been really, really good. I've kind of picked up the pace in the last few days, and I've been just really, really enjoying it and just sinking in. I think it's just such a different kind of pace to some of the other things that I've been reading, so it's been standing apart in a good way. But yeah, I've been really enjoying Proust, and I'm liking where it's going. I also started reading this. This is the Making of a Poem, a Norton Anthology of Poetic Forms. This is edited by Strand and Eavan Boland, and it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's going through poetic forms, giving a bit of an introduction to them, and then giving some examples. And on the whole, it's really fun, And it starts off with forms like the villanelle and pantoums and things like that, which aren't necessarily forms relying on rhyme, which is generally what you generally the first thing you think of when you think of poetic form is rhyme. Whereas something like a pantoum or a sestina or a villanelle relies on repetition, either of lines or of specific words, and so it's quite a fun starting place, and it's been good so far. I'm about a third or so of the way through, and it's been pretty good. I also picked up this from a charity shop a few weeks ago. This is Simon Schama's Citizens, a Chronicle of the French Revolution. There's a bit of a weird time to pick it up. It was only sort of around the time the Queen died, and when I picked it up in the bookshop, as a charity shop, but the guy there, as he was putting it in the cash register, was like, yep, they knew what they were doing. But it's an interesting thing, because on one hand, maybe they did know what they're doing, because I'll show my stripes, but I'm sort of Republican when it comes to whether you should have a monarch or not. I would prefer not. But also, it's kind of fairly true to say that they didn't really know what they're doing at the same time. But we'll see how that goes. I've made a little bit of progress with that, but I might not carry on with it in October. I might put it to one side and then pick it up again with a little more focus for November, for non-fiction November. So we'll see. And let's go into what I want to read in October. So I think my main read for sort of victober will be some Thomas Hardy. I haven't read any Thomas Hardy in ages, but I really, really love Far From the Madding Crowd. It's one of my favourite books. And I've got Jude the Obscure here. And so, I've never read it, and I'm looking forward. And we'll see whether any of... so I'm not going to read any Victorian poetry or any Victorian short stories, but we'll see if I hit any of the other Victober prompts, and I'll have, so I think I'll link at least one of the Victober announcement videos down below, and if you want to check it out. The other thing I'll sort of be joining in with will be Dractober. Is it Dractober? Yeah. And that's a sort of a read aloud of Bram Stoker's Dracula that Mark from Book Time with Elvis is doing, along with Steve Donoghue and Micah Cummins. And I really, really love Dracula. So I think I'm going to do my best to read along, and I'll be there watching the video and reading along. Well, I'll be listening to the video really, because my eyes will be on the book. But yeah, I think it'll be my third time reading Dracula, and I think it's been about maybe 3 or 4 years since I've read it. So yeah, I think I'll enjoy it. And then the next few sort of possibilities, they're just there if I'm, but we'll see if I end up reading them. I hope I do. But we've got some Henry James, the Aspen Papers and the Turn of the Screw, which seems to suit this time of the year as nights are getting darker and things are getting a bit spookier. This keeps coming up again time after time, but Ray Bradbury, The Illustrated Man, maybe in October I'll finally get it read. And then the last book here, if I finish that Norton Anthology of Poetic Forms, just so I've got a book of poetry on the go at all times. My sort of next choice for a poetry book to slot in will be the poems of Elizabeth Bishop. And this is, I think, all the poetry that she wrote, so, and I think it is quite interesting that, with some poets, when you have their complete poems, it's a really big chunky thing. Maybe it's across multiple volumes. For Elizabeth Bishop, it's just this. And I get the impression that she was a very careful, considerate, kind of quite critical poet in terms of herself and her own output. And so I feel like, although she didn't go for the quantity, I think she seems like someone who'd definitely go for the quality. So we'll see how that goes. But there we go. That's everything that I've read in September, everything I want to read on October, and all that sort of weird stuff in the middle ground that's still going on. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you had a great reading month. And yeah, let's see how October goes. Take care.